Good morning, friends. Welcome to this lecture series of replacement theory part 3. So let's begin. In this lecture, we are going to study about introduction to model 4. See, in previous lecture, we have already discussed about model 1, 2 and 3. They were related to the items which are deteriorating with respect to time, and we also consider these machines, some new machines which are like literally replacing the older machines. And the third one was the model where you have the time value of money, right? We all discussed all this kind of models. Now in this lecture we are going to discuss about the model number 4, which is nothing but the individual and group replacement theories. And we will also look into the illustration so that you can easily understand it. So let's start with the individual or group replacement policy. So what do you mean by individual or group replacement policy? So let's start. Now you might be thinking that some of the items are sometimes beneficial to be replaced in groups. So what are those items? So let's see. Now if you see here in this line, I have written that they do not deteriorate but fail completely after certain amount of use. Means you will see certain items are there which are of no use. They fail suddenly, right? So what are those items? Let's say for example bulbs are there, lights are there, right? They fail suddenly, right? So these kind of items, they can be easily analyzed with the help of group replacement theory, and they are failing at their average life expectancy. If you see here, it is written that they failed at their average life expectancy. Clear? And without giving any warning they fail. And sometimes these sudden breakdowns also will be like costing the company huge money, right? All of a sudden they fail, and then immediate replacement is difficult to be found out. Now what are the examples? Let's see. Now if you see here, it does not involve periodic simultaneous replacement along the individual replacement in between. It doesn't mean that, let's say for example, if the company is replacing the bulbs as and when required. Now imagine that after a couple of months, some of the bulbs are faulty and they need replacing. Like what the company will do, they will also do the group replacement of all the bulbs after the end of 2 months, and they try to also replace the faulty bulbs as well. Even by doing this kind of policy, they will be benefiting with a huge amount of money. So let's see how does this thing happens and how do they get the benefits. Now what are the examples? As I indicated, electronic chips are there, fuse, bulbs, light bulbs, all these come under this categories where they fail suddenly, right? Before that we also discussed, in the previous model we discussed about the items that were failing gradually. Clear? In this section we will be dealing with the products which are failing suddenly. Now when to adopt the group replacement? So let's see. So first is, the value of any individual item is so small, right? If you talk about, let's say for example bulbs, if you compare with the groups of bulbs, like individual bulb cost is not that much. Clear? Compared to like CNC machine or some industrial machinery. So you can consider in that case group replacement. Next is, the keeping records of this individual ages is high, that cannot be justified. Now imagine that you are taking care of each and every bulb, the life of bulb, and you want to take down the time or the age of the bulb. It is very difficult, right? It is very difficult to take the records. So in that case you can use the group replacement. Next is, purchase of such identical items in bulk you can get it at a discounted rate. Definitely all the companies, the supplier companies, right? If you are buying in bulks, the company, they can get the discounted rate for these bulbs, right? So in that case the company should adopt definitely group replacement. Again, imagine that you have individual replacement and then group replacement, right? In some cases, specifically in bulb replacement, it is sometimes beneficial for the company to replace in a group, right? Rather than replacing individually these bulbs, because it is costlier, right? It is costlier to like literally replace. Imagine that there are 1,000 bulbs installed in a company, and as and when in 1 or 2 months in or they suddenly fails, right? And they cannot hire the engineers, or you can say the electrical engineers or the electricians, to change these bulbs or replace these bulbs every now and then. It is costlier, right? Sometimes it is costlier than average group replacement. So in that case you also use the group replacement policy. And again, you have sufficient number of standby machines. So what do you mean by that? It will help in easily coping with the group replacement. A new design of equipment considerably increase the production rate. Definitely, if you have new design products or the items, if they are increasing the production rate, you will definitely go with the group replacement. Again, we already discussed, but see, a long period between group replacement result in increase in cost of individual replacement. Now it has to be a balance, right? Sometimes you take the both benefits of both. Let's say for example you take the individual replacement of products as well as group replacement at certain fixed interval of time. After the fixed interval of time you try to replace in a group. Okay, it is beneficial. Now what are the steps you follow when you are doing the group replacement? It's algorithm you follow one by one. So let's see. In the first step, you find the probability of failure of item at the end of each period. Let's say for example, after 1 month, a bulb is failing. The probability of failing of a bulb is around 10%, or you can say 0.1. So that is the numerical way of finding out. Means you find out the probability. You write down the numbers, right? You find out the number that indicates the probability. In the next step, you will find out the replacements, how many numbers of replacement you need at certain time of a certain period, right? And you will note down this number of replacements and the cost of replacement as well. You will write down as you will note down and you will calculate the cost of replacement as well. Now in third step, you will calculate the cost of individual replacement at the end of each period. Let's say for example 10 bulbs are needs replacing after an end of 2 months. So we will find out the cost of individual replacement of each bulb at the end of second month. What is the step 4? Again, this was the case with the individual replacement, right? Now we will focus on the group replacement. Now what you will do, imagine that you are replacing, let's say for example the installed bulbs are 1,000 and you want to replace in a group. You will replace all of them at after certain fixed interval. You will replace all of them. You will also calculate the cost of replacement in that case as well. Now what you will do, you will calculate the total cost of group replacement as well as individual replacement by adding both the steps. Means whatever individual replacement cost you have found out and the group replacement cost, you will add both of them. Clear? You will compare them. Calculate the average cost by dividing the result in step 5 with the period number. Whatever the period number is, you will divide it by whatever the average cost is, you will divide it by the period number and then you will get the answer. You will compare it easily that individual replacement is necessary or beneficial, or group replacement is beneficial. And last, whatever is the least cost, average least cost, you will go with that policy. Say individual policy, individual replacement policy, or group replacement policy. What does this algorithm try to say is that first you will find out the cost of individual replacement. Clear? How do you calculate? You will calculate the probability of failures of each and every month or say year, whatever is the criteria you have decided. You will find out the probability. You will get the probability. Clear? And you will find out the cost of individual replacement. In next steps, you will find out the cost of group replacement, and then accordingly you will find out the cost of group replacement and you will compare both of the cost. If one of the cost is least, let's say for example individual cost is cheaper, or say least cost, average least cost, then you will definitely go with the individual replacement. Clear? So that is the case. Now let's say for example I'm here giving you the illustration so that you can easily understand. A factory has 1000 bulbs installed. Means let's say for example factory has 1000 bulb installed in their unit, right? Cost of individual replacement is rupees 31. Means if you replace one bulb, it will cost company 31 rupees, right? Now while that of group replacement rupees 11 per bulb. Now for if you are removing all the bulbs at the same time, that is costing company per bulb 11 rupees. Clear? Now it is decided to replace all bulbs simultaneously at fixed interval. What do you mean by that? It means that suppose let's say for example after 8 months the company is deciding to replace all the bulbs. Clear? And also to replace the individual bulbs that fail in between. What do you mean by that? It means that let's say for example after 4 months around 50 bulbs suddenly fails. 50 bulbs suddenly fail. So what the company will also replace those bulbs at a cost. Clear? Now determine optimum replacement policy. Now we have to decide what is the optimum replacement policy. Group replacement is the good case, better case, or you can say individual replacement. Means when as and when required the company will replace. Failure probabilities are given below. So what are the failure probabilities? Now here it is given. The first month it is given 10% failure. What do you mean by that? Means in first month the probability of a bulb of failing is 10% or 0.1, right? Now if you see it in these figures here, the figures are 10, 10%, 25%, 50%, 80%, 100%. It is increasing and it is cumulative, right? If I ask you what is at the end of second month, right, the probability individual, if I ask individual month probability, you have to deduct the amount. Let's say for example for the second one you deduct 25 from 10, 10 from 25, so it is roughly coming out to be 15, right? So together it is the full probability is 100, or obviously the probability should be 1, right? In percent it is 100%. What do you mean by that? It means that at the end of 5th month almost all the probability that the bulb will fail is almost 100%. That is the probability, right? So based on this data the company has to decide. See, the probability is very high. At the end of 5th month almost all the bulbs will not be working. Clear? They will be failing. That is the probability. And based on this data we have to decide what is the optimum replacement policy. Now what I will do, we will solve the example, the similar kind of example, individual and group replacement policy, and we will look so how do we solve this problem, and we will decide that is individual replacement good or group replacement policy good for the company for the given situation. Okay, thank you very much.